tell you what, there's nothing more satisfying than having a really nice beer. And there's nothing more satisfying than having a beer and waiting for it for 2 years. Because that sip was 2 years in the making. After I had the crazy crackers idea of let's do a lager. And I said, why don't we go a bit crackers? Why don't we use some sake yeast? The thought occurred to me that we could possibly look at a lager, like a crystal type lager, perhaps a German Pils lager or something like that, but with an infusion of the yeast flavour in some way, shape or form. Not putting sake into lager, but giving the character of the yeast that's in the sake into the lager. As it happened, I've been drinking a lot of sake. And as it happened, I knew somebody who had a source of sake yeast.
And we've all heard that story before, haven't we? Where you go, I know someone who can do something. So this is where it all started.
A friend of ours happens to be a big Maiden fan called George User. George has a sake brewery. So I got George to send me some yeast. And Martin worked his magic.
Turning that vision of that thought into reality, well, that's the challenge, but funny, we're up for a challenge. That's what Robinson's all about. The first challenge for us was, we're a traditional ale brewery. How do we make a really high quality lager? We've never used a lager yeast before, and so this is one of the reasons it's taken us 2 years to get to this stage, is we had to develop and change our processes. First of all, choose a really high quality lager yeast, and there's lots and lots of yeast out there. And we went for one that really was going to give us a bit of a sweet mouthfeel, but will enable the sake aromatics to come through. So we had to learn how to use sake yeast in our brewery in a way that would enable it to grow and really give its wonderful flavours to us. So the next thing was, we know how to grow it. How do we get the two to mix together? And we basically decided to start with a standard fermentation lager. So we have this wonderful yeast, we created a lovely lager. We then did a completely different off-the-wall type approach, which was to have a secondary fermentation. So after it's finished its natural fermentation and we created a good lager, really good lager, we then put the sake yeast into the beer at 10 degrees centigrade and allowed another 10 to 14 days fermentation period for the sake to really infuse its flavours into the lager. At that stage, we then went into the lagering process. So we chill it down to -1 for at least 14 days to have a really high quality lager. From then onwards, filtration and bottle, and here we are now.
Are you ready for this? This is Sun and Steel. It's top secret. I can tell you, this is like the champagne of craft lager. It's absolutely sensational. Martin, I took a crazy crackpot idea and said, what about we take some sake yeast and we brew our very first lager? Can't just do a lager like anybody else's lager, because that's sort of boring. Let's do something really creative with it. So this one, if you love a little bit of lychee, a little bit of aroma, everything else, this is absolutely gorgeous. A summer drink with a kick like a mule. Fantastic. It's the sumo of beers in a little glass.
So it's clean, crisp lager first, complex sake second. Wow, what a combination.
Sun and Steel.